All right. Good afternoon. My name is Jason Shropshire,
Daniel Rakowski.
and we are from Infusion Points. And we're doing a quick video to go through some of the updates to FedRAMP templates that came out on August 30th,
Yep.
2018. So, again, there's documentation dump from the FedRAMP PMO. 10 different documents were updated, and I think one new one was added. We've already done a video on the FedRAMP high RAR. Today we're going to do a video on the SSP.
Yep.
The high SSP specifically, figuring you can get to moderate just based on what's in the high SSP. So we won't do a separate video on moderate. We're just going to cover high and let that be. So without any further ado, we're getting right into it.
Okay. First off, we have section 2.3.
So first of all, I mean, what overall, what do you think the overall themes were of the changes? I mean, it seemed to me like the digital identity guidance was a big part of it. Some stuff from the boundary guidance that recently came out, came into effect.
Yep.
Anything else?
Primarily pointers along with that to the new
Yeah.
updated documents. That was kind of
References.
One of the themes that came along with this was that they're wanting to point to, here's our updated templates, so here's our that are pointing to our new updated documents.
Yeah,
So,
and ironically, it seems like more changed almost in the RAR than that really changed in the SSP.
yes.
You know, it
Yes.
just it seemed like it was more dramatic, I guess, in the RAR because it's a shorter document.
Right.
But
Right.
the SSP itself was there's definitely some changes here, but you know, nothing earth-shattering. There's some realignments with language and things, and a couple of changes that were interesting that we
Yeah.
thought. So we'll go through those now.
Okay, yeah. Section 2.3, the change from e-authentication levels to digital identity levels. Pretty simple, straightforward. You're either, your level is 1, 2, or 3, depending on your AAL, IAL, and FAL.
Yeah, and this is just the realignment, you know, based on NIST SP 863-3 coming out recently. They renamed that to Digital Identity Guidelines from e-authentication. So that old term e-authentication that is as old as MO404
Yep.
is not there anymore. And now it's Digital Identity Guidelines. They broke it out into three different aspects of digital identity, and we'll get into that. There's a whole section at the end in the attachments, the worksheet.
Right.
So we'll go over this a little more in depth at the end of the video. But yeah, so that realignment is kind of a theme that now e-authentication's gone and now it's digital identity.
Right.
So basically you select those here in the table. It's not shown here, but they're just changing the name. Also, sort of the references to the MO404 aren't as direct.
Right.
It's just noted that the notes kind of changed, I guess, in the way that they refer to it. So they really are noting more now a direct link to SP 863-3.
Yep.
So cool.
Okay, next section is 8.3. While it's not specifically a change, it's kind of more of a pattern break than anything else, because in the high RAR, we noticed that the FedRAMP PMO split external services and systems into two. They put it in leveraged FedRAMP authorizations and then external systems and services. They didn't seem to follow that pattern here in the high SSP for some reason. They just stuck with the leveraged authorizations. So not necessarily a change, but something that
well, in a way, you know, with the SSP, Section 9 almost covered a lot of that. So it's almost like they realigned the RAR to break things out more the way the SSP does.
Right,
You know,
right.
I
I see.
That's one way to look at it too.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
there's not a change here specifically in this section, but it's illustrative to note that in the RAR it did change.
Right.
You know, they broke out external connections, you know, to be much more. They want much more detail,
Granularity.
around the system boundary about what data is coming in and leaving, and full disclosure of external connections.
Right.
And they've defined that to mean, you know, pretty much any data flows in or out of the system boundary. So.
Yep. Yep.
All right.
Next up is section 9.2, information system components and boundaries. The biggest changes are a little bit of guidance pieces. specifically saying that they want a very clear, predominant border around all the components and services included inside the authorization boundary. So they're looking for clarity in your diagram and what you're providing for 3PO to understand.
Yeah, this is really additional guidance to what was here before.
Hmm.
And, given very prescriptive what they want to see in the diagram,
Yep.
where
Yep.
before it wasn't as clear.
Yep.
And then they do give a direct reference as well to the guidance, but it's a very generic URL.
Hmm.
So, see all the documents as guidance.
Here's the page. Have fun. So.
All right.
Next one is 10.1, the data flow diagram. Um, Basically, the things that they changed here was they're wanting data flows for privileged users, non-privileged users, and also to include authentication and authorization flows as well for both of those. So you could almost kind of break this out into 4 separate, clean, clear diagrams where you have privileged user access for authorization, privileged user access for authentication, non-privileged user for authorization and authentication as well. So to kind of break that out, that almost kind of sets the standard of, okay, here's 4 nice, clean, prescriptive, descriptive diagrams.
Yep.
For data flow.
Yeah, and then privileged and non-privileged. So I think they're just sort of just realigning their language a little bit. I mean, before they had this language like internal controls between customer and project users, and it's kind of like, well, what is a project user?
Yeah.
Where do these terms come from?
Yep.
Now they talk about privileged and non-privileged users, which is from the language of the controls.
It's in alignment.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it makes more sense.
Yep. Next one is System Interconnect, section 11. Even though it already existed in the table, they added it to the guidance itself, the words to the guidance itself. They were just wanting a point of contact, name, and phone number for the external organization System Interconnects. It was always there in the table, so not really a huge change, but just them.
It's funny.
wanting
It
to
makes you wonder
clear.
what why certain things were done or added.
Yeah, it almost makes me wonder, have a lot of people been filling this out without the name and phone
Yeah,
number,
is it really, do we need to, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Yep. So RA3, next, the dissemination of the risk assessment results to include all authorizing officials. And they changed the wordage a little bit. It used to be to include all authorizing officials and FedRAMP ISSOs, however you say it. But now the new verbiage says for JAB authorizations to include FedRAMP. So they're just covering the agency side, JAB side.
Yeah,
And
they're kind of getting rid of this, the FedRAMP ISSOs. So they're reducing the use of that terminology, mainly because I think that they've really moved away from that model of having a ISSO be representative.
Right.
Yeah. So.
All right. And RA5, I believe. Yep. Vulnerability scanning, just like in the RAR. Now here's where they did kind of follow up for the low vulnerability remediation for 180 days. They made sure to explicitly put that in there in the control language.
Yeah, so that's new now. 180 days is now in the control language for remediating low risk vulnerabilities.
Yep. Pretty simple, straightforward. RA56. They removed the guidance to include the automated mechanisms to compare results of vulnerability scans over time to establish trends in the Conmon ISO report. So it's not quite sure why that was removed. I mean, it's I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that comes to mind is I know that one of the previous authorizations that we did continuous monitoring for, it was a JAB ATO. We we never did have to submit a digest report to the JAB on a monthly basis. We submitted scans.
Right.
There was a whole process around that. They submitted back basically a summary of where we stood, where the ATO stood
Right.
as far as the metrics against potentially having the ATO revoked and things like that.
Right. Right. Yep.
But we never did have to submit any kind of digest like that. So I guess that wasn't a common practice. So they just decided to nix it from
Yep.
their requirement.
Okay, next is SA9. This was guidance updated for external information services to use the authorization boundary guidance document. Pretty straightforward, basic, just an example of how they updated their pointers to their new documents. So,
Yep.
just one more
Pretty
there.
straightforward.
Yep. Next one is attachment 2, the user guide.
Ugh. So I think this is a typo that we found, or a copy paste error.
Yeah.
So attachment 1 is actually information security policies and procedures. So I think that this exact same verbiage is actually in the attachment 1. So I think that they cut and pasted this where it should have been actually what was there previously. So this was a one typo that we found.
Yeah.
So.
All right, next up is attachment number 3, the digital identity worksheet. So I guess just following up and rebranding the attachment from E-auth to digital identity now.
Yeah, and that, we can see here that they're following, that they're pointing to the newest guidance. The link to the old OMB memo is out of vogue now. They're calling everything digital identity instead of E-auth. So everything that we kind of expected with the rebranding and the changing the name of 863-3, has trickled all the way down now into the FedRAMP templates.
Yep.
So, pretty cut and dry. And we did, I guess it's intuitive to note here that there is, or interesting to note rather, there are now 3 different levels defined: identity, authenticator, and federation for assurance levels. And in a normal system under FISMA, those could be all evaluated independently for a system. But the way that the FedRAMP digital identity guidance came out, FedRAMP said we're going to be prescriptive and subscribe to a high watermark, just like the FIPS 199 categorization. If you're targeting, system users who are going to have high impact systems, are going to be hosting on your infrastructure as a service, cloud service, then you lay down that you're going to be a high system.
Yes.
Based on the kind of customers that you want to support, the kind of workloads that you want to support, right?
Right.
And so the same thing, they just say that if you're going to be at the high watermark for a system categorization, that goes all the way across to IL3, and it's going to automatically be 3 across the board for all the assurance levels.
Right. Exactly.
Under the digital identity guidance.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Yeah, so the way that you, instead of just selecting one, this should have been radio buttons, I guess. Now you select just one level.
Yeah.
So high would be level 3 for all 3.
Yep. And the last one is attachment number 9, the CIS report and worksheet. I guess they just decided to bring it together and make it one simple document instead of having to break it out in a report.
Yeah, previously it was kind of I think it was a Word document that was a couple pages, and then it had an embedded spreadsheet.
Oh.
So it was just kind of, a little bit weird for a template.
Yeah.
So I think they just did away with the workbook, and now it's just the Excel file is all you have to have. So it makes it just more straightforward.
Yep.
So that was a good call. So I really think that was the lion's share of what we saw, and our methodology here was to take the old template, the new template, use Microsoft Word to do a compare, and it did a red line, and then we analyzed that. It turned into a lot of red line changes, but you could see specifically what it changed. We've also gone back to the PMO.
Right. Send them an email, info@fedramp.gov.
Yeah, and I mean, we've requested, they say that they make the red line changes available to you if you want them. So we went back and requested that. We haven't heard anything yet, but if we see anything substantial that we missed here, we'll update the video. We'll annotate potentially, anything that we missed at a future date. But for now, we'll be doing another video here shortly, that goes over the rest of the changes made to the 10 documents. We've done the high RAR, this is the high SSP. So we'll probably just do one video that sort of summarizes the changes in the other
Right,
documents.
the rest.
But thank you for watching.